Hey, Battle Bill here with another video, and today we're getting some more Little Cup Go Battle League battles. That still feels really weird to say, but either way, yesterday's video, the practice battles, really paid off because I used that same team for my first day of Little Cup battles in Season 5, and we got off to a great start. I went 20-5 with this team. Now, when it jumps off at you, it's not the most spice team in the world, and honestly, I don't know how many spice picks are going to be usable in Little Cup battles, but if I'm able to build some Stardust over the week, I'll try to get some spice made for you guys, and I'll try to do some shoutcasts. But this is a meta team that if you have the Pokemon, I highly recommend. I had a ton of success. I lost leads, still won matches, still pulled it off. Shadow Stunky, best Bronzor counter in the game. 20-5 with this team, and I'm excited for more battles using this team. If you're excited to check out the set and see the one set that this was actually my first set with the team, so I didn't really know how I was going to play out certain matchups, and I still did really well with it. But if you're excited for those battles, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let's start checking them out. So, like I mentioned, this is my first set using it, and these are just 5 battles, but if you want to see all the ins and the outs, I highly recommend you check out my Twitch. The link's in the description. The VOD from yesterday's stream is there. You can see the 20 other battles that aren't here in this YouTube video, because 25 battles in YouTube video is just way too long of a video. People don't want to watch, and you can figure out all the ins and the outs through those first 5 sets. And I'm sure I'll be streaming probably the day this video comes out also, and I'll have more matches where you could figure out how to play certain situations. But let's talk about the situations we face in this match. I ended up losing lead, and what I learned after that, I actually learned how I wanted to play out that why not Bronzor mirror, and I don't like playing it out the way I did in this first match. But I think this match is going to end up working out for the best, even though I didn't play out that lead as optimal as I could have. What you should do there in the why not versus Bronzor matchup is play it out until the Bronzor is throwing 2 heavy slams, because then the counters and the mirror coats from why not have done about 1/3 of Bronzor's health, and then you swap into Shadow Stunky and the bites chunk away at it. The whole goal is if you can't line up Bronzor with your counter, you want to just chip away at it as much as you can, because at the end of the game, the Bronzor with the most health is going to be the one that wins the match, no matter how it ends up going. My opponent ends up burning both their shields in this, and then I swap into why not because they had their Dino, and that's the other thing, being quick on the swaps. My opponent here was not very quick on their swaps, which allowed for certain counters to get through against their Dino, and it allowed for certain bites to get through against their Bronzor, even though they had counters for my Pokemon. So I have a 2-shield, no-shield advantage here, and I gotta play this out. We're gonna be spamming. Like I said, a 2-shield advantage here. We're going to be spamming charge moves, or I don't know if I want to say spamming, throwing them. And they're going to be throwing charge moves. I'm going to shield, keep why not a little bit alive, because I still need to deal with the Dino. And the whole plan is, because how little damage we're doing to each other, ironic, little damage in Little Cup, the switch timer is going to be up relatively soon, so my plan is to get Bronzor back in and see if they decide to swap or if they swap slow. So I go into Bronzor, and they decide to keep in their Bronzor. So my opponent definitely should have went into Dino, should have kept the Pokemon lined up the way they could have been in this match, and my opponent could have won if they would have done that. Instead, they commit in certain situations to not switching or just take too long on the switch, and those are the key mistakes here. You still want to play Little Cup battles out similarly to how you would play out battles in other leagues, where like if you're countering your opponent's Pokemon and it's lined up in a certain way, you make sure you line it up in the way where you're countering their Pokemon. But my opponent did not do that in this situation. And what it's going to allow me to do is I'm going to be able to take out their Bronzor. I still have my why not alive to deal with their Dino, and I also have some health on my Bronzor to land a potential charge move, but my switch timer ended up being up. So they're going to come through. I save those shields. It comes to pay off. This could be a body slam bait. Ends up being the crunch. So I call the big move, which is huge. Honestly, could have been a body slam bait, and these counters and the mirror coat that I would have gotten through still probably would have been enough to take out the Dino. Plus, Bronzor still had enough health if they would have thrown 2. They would have thrown 2 body slams. I would have gotten off at least a side shock to win this match. I pulled the first match. Just making, certain plays you would typically make in Go Battle League matches. Certain matchups are a lot slower than you prefer, though, because of how very little damage these Pokemon are doing to each other in certain situations. But then you line up a Shadow Stunky against a Drifloon, and you devour it. But that's for another battle and another video. But yes, when I use this team in the order that I'm using it, I would much prefer to see a Dino lead. That's essentially what I'm aiming for, is for people to bring their Bronzor counters in the lead and hide it in the back, just like this matchup. This is a positive lead for me. The counters deal super effective damage to Dino, taking him down pretty quickly. They swap into a Ferroseed, which I wasn't really prepared for, so I didn't know what to go into, and I'm like, you know what, Stunky's probably a good idea. I could bite away at this and do some neutral damage. They'll throw a charge move here, and I know Stunky doesn't want to take too many charge moves, especially on Iron Head. I feel like that would take out all of Stunky's health, considering just how glassy it is, but luckily I'm going to be able to bite it down, and I have a Crunch charged up, so the shield that I just used, I might be able to get back. Another thing to keep in mind, this Crunch is going to be resisted by Dino, but if this lands, it does a solid chunk of damage. Ends up getting the shield, but that Crunch would have put Dino into the red, so just in case, for future reference, if you ever face that situation and you're the Dino, you don't want to take a Shadow Stunky's Crunch. But now I'm able to keep my Why Not lined up with their Dino, and Why Not is a tank. That's a super effective Crunch. That, honestly, might have seemed like it was more damage than it really was, and the Dragon Breaths really weren't doing much to Why Not. The Crunch was the only thing that dealt damage. I took out the Dino, they come in with the Shinx, and at this point this is GG. I respect the attempt at Spice. I was a little worried about a potential Bronzor being back there, but because my Bronzor had full health and I had a shield advantage, I was sure I was going to take this matchup. Also, I shielded there just because I have no idea what the heck Shinx is running. They could have technically had Crunch. I know the evolutions get dark moves, but then again, I wasn't getting stabbed, so I wasn't worried about doing too much damage. Plus, Bronzor is also a tank. That's the other piece of logic in this team build, is take 2 tanks and then 1 Shadow Mon that could deal a lot of damage and take out Bronzor. Honestly, forms a pretty complete team for these little cup battles so far. Also, respect to my opponent's Spice in that last game. I was honestly expecting to see more of that because I didn't really know how much people would be committing to Little Cup, but other than that match, I've been seeing a lot of Bronzors. I've been seeing a lot of people with double moves on their Pokemon. No shame to that whatsoever. Also, I hadn't learned my lesson yet on how I want to play out that Bronzor matchup until I streamed later. So if you really want to see how I play that matchup out exactly, like the gameplay itself, go check out the VOD. Link to my Twitch is in the description. But yes, I'm swapping too fast. I get charmed down by that Cottony. My opponent here swaps a lot quicker than my first opponent. But yeah, people came prepared for Little Cup. They came with their Cottonies, they came with their Bronzors, they came with their Dinos. Some people run a Shadow Stunky. So people want to win, and respect to that. I appreciate that. Unfortunately, we found out that rank 10 is only gonna require, that's the word I'm looking for, 50 wins, which I'm not exactly happy about. I wish it would be a bit more of a competitive win total, but I also understand that these are going to be 3 Spice Cups, and Niantic's whole message for this season was to have fun and try new things. So it makes sense that they made the win total what it was, but the competitor in me is not going to be that satisfied with getting ranked 10 this season, and I guess that is what I will leave it at. One other thing that I learned, and I don't think it happens in this match specifically, or does it? Shelmet slaughters 2/3 of my team. Shelmet can really put in work against Why Not, and honestly, the bug neutral damage is pretty decent against Bronzor, and also Stunky doesn't really like the matchup too well against. Actually, alright, maybe it doesn't slaughter it, but Stunky and Bronzor don't have the best matchups there, and Why Not gets absolutely slaughtered. But either way, Shelmet is a problem, and respect to Shelmet, respect to my opponent here for running it. I swap into Why Not. Yes, okay, maybe it was this match. I didn't know my matchups. I didn't know at this point that, you know, Shelmet would be doing signal beams, getting the debuff on my attack and my defense, and of course also dealing super effective damage, you know, Bug super effective against Psychic. I should have known that. I wasn't really thinking, and I also kind of forgot that Shelmet, even though it evolves into... Which one does it evolve into? Does it evolve into a Selgor? What evolves into a Scavalier? I always mix those two up. But regardless, with it being a shell with a helmet, I thought it would be a Bug Steel type, which is why I went into Why Not, because it would deal neutral counters. But no, it's just a Bug type. So you learn some of these matchups the hard way, and the Shelmet gave me a hard time. And yes, because of it, I realized their Bronzor has full health, mine does not. I'm not going to play all that matchup, waste anybody's time. Lesson learned, gotta play against Shelmet better. And you know, that's the hype about these new cups. There are certain little matchups and certain little new things you're going to learn. I don't know how useful it's going to be to me in the future outside of this week, but it was pretty interesting to see. Shelmet definitely put in work against me there, and I had an even harder time against it when I streamed later in the day, so it kind of got me excited to want to potentially make one, but I'm not sure because, again, I don't know how much dust I want to invest considering I don't have a lot. But if I do try a Spice Pick, Shellman's definitely on the list of things to look into powering up if I even have one. Hopefully I do. But either way, getting to this next match, why not on Blitzel? Neutral matchups, why not typically wins, because even though my opponent's going to get off a flame charge there, it's not doing a lot of damage, they boost themselves, my counters are still chunking away at their Blitzel, and these mirror coats are definitely hurting it also. Blitzel, it's interesting that it has access to the moves that it has, but I don't see it really overpowering anything based on the fact that it's glassy, and it doesn't get stabbed on flame charge, and Spark, I'm assuming, is its quick move. That's what it looks like from the animation, isn't the most threatening. I did shield there because they committed a shield, and I knew I could also counter down the way I did, but why not win that pretty handily? I have a good chunk of health left, I have a mirror coat. Oh, this was another spicy I ran into. But I'm telling you, if you check out the Twitch VOD, I wasn't seeing a bunch of spice, but I did see a couple. This was my very first set, so honestly, this was bound to happen. But it was pretty cool to see why the meta is the meta, because Dratini here didn't like this why not matchup either, and I essentially slaughtered about half their team, more than that, with why not alone. And now they're going to throw a charge move with their Dratini on my Bronzor. We're going to find out Rat really doesn't do anything because Bronzor is also an absolute tank. I was about to confuse them down. They swapped into a Mudboy, Barboach. I saw a Barboach and I'm like, ooh, do I try and make a double Mudboy strat? Do I go with Barboach and Mudkip and figure out something to replace Skarmory? Because, you know, Skarmory doesn't have a pre-evolution. But I learned here that even though these Mud Bombs do chunk, Barboach is also just too glassy of an option. You really need some of the tankier Pokemon here that I guess have the lower attacks, which is why their defense and HP are so high. I don't know. It's so fascinating to me that, you know, 500 CP Pokemon are something I'm gonna consider tanky. But yeah, Bronzor and why not definitely hold their own and show why the rest of the meta has a hard time competing with them just because of their bulk alone. So currently 3-1 in the set. Let's see if I can clinch a 4-1. I mean, based on the record I gave you, I might have kind of given away how this set goes. But we get another positive matchup. I respect the shiny Dino, but it's no match for my Why Not. I wish my Why Not was shiny. That would be really dope. But yeah, I'm seeing how long my opponent's going to stay in. They learn pretty quickly that they don't want to take these counters, and typically the Dinos swap out. But I guess they wanted to charge all the way up to a Crunch, and I had no problem with even tanking a Crunch. But they end up throwing a Body Slam, which Why Not can also tank. They swap into Cottony, and Cottony lands beautifully on my Bronzor. So one thing about my team is that Cottony can actually give me a hard time based on the fact that Why Not is dealing resisted counters. Yes, resisted because it's a fairy type. And then Stunky's going to get absolutely slaughtered even though it's taking neutral damage from the charms. But again, the charms still chunk away at it. So my only real counter for Cottony is Bronzor. But most people aren't running it in the lead. So it works out nicely that I'm keeping Bronzor in the back, so that when they safe swap Cottony, I safe swap Bronzor, and I keep everything lined up exactly how I want it. I think I ran into Cottony once as a lead, and I played out the Why Not matchup a little bit, and then I think I swapped in the Bronzor later on, or I might have played out completely. I just haven't faced a lead enough to really give you an answer on what the best method is there. Bronzor I ran into a bunch of times as a lead, which is why I was able to explain earlier what the best method in dealing with that is. Also, that Dino matchup, even though Dino is a counter to Bronzor, you see how they threw a Body Slam and the Dragon Breaths really aren't hurting Bronzor much. You really need to get the crunches off, and I was able to get my opponent's last shield, and I have a 2-shield, no-shield advantage. We get some lag here, but the moves end up going through. The Dino is a little bit lower. My Bronzor goes down, Why Not comes in, farms it down, I have a 2-shield to no-shield advantage. They go into a Bronzor, and this is what I'm telling you, Stunky, it's chewing away at Bronzor. I'm telling you, it's the best counter to Bronzor. Bronzor is a tank. Look at how quickly it got it down to practically the red. Now, obviously I have 2 shields here, so I'm in a shield. I expected the Heavy Slam. Stunky could definitely tank a Psyshock. I haven't seen how much a Heavy Slam does, but I am concerned that it probably would have hurt there. But outside of that, Stunky does really well against Bronzor. So if you could play the 1 shield out or the 2 shield, you're going to win 100%. The 0 shield on PV Poke, when I checked the sim, it said it won. But I haven't seen how much a Heavy Slam does. And I could only assume that it would hurt enough for it to win the matchup. But I haven't seen it. The sim says otherwise. I don't remember if I ran it with just Psyshock or Heavy Slam. But regardless, if you have a shield on Stunky, it's 100% beating that Bronzor. So, just went back to PV Poke really quick in between scenes to check that sim between Shadow Stunky and Bronzor, and it says that Stunky could tank a Heavy Slam. It definitely doesn't look like it could, but if PV Poke says it can, then it can. So it's winning the 0, 1, and 2, like I said. Shadow Stunky, best Bronzor counter confirmed. I had a ton of fun with this team, and when I streamed using this team, I had a lot of fun with it then. I don't know how quickly these matchups are going to maybe start to bore me after a while, and I'll just want a power up spice to try things out. But also I went 20-5 with this team, so you know, winning is always fun. Can't really complain about that. Other than that, let me know what you guys thought of the team. I'm really enjoying it. It's definitely going to be my go-to team for Little Cup, and I hope that this recommendation goes well for you guys too if you decide to try it out. Please let me know if you have success. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.